And so, yeah, a lot of people ask me quite frequently what made me decide that taking a 50% pay cut right out of college, especially I had to put myself through college and had student loans. Why would I do such a thing?
Leadership is everywhere. In our work, in our family, in our community. We see leaders by their actions. We know their legacy. This podcast is about leaders, people just like you, doing amazing things every day. I hope these stories inspire you, they motivate you, and they fuel your leadership legacy. My name is Vicki Guy. Welcome to Ignite. Hi, and welcome to Ignite. We hope that you've been enjoying our conversations, and if so, please hit that subscribe button so we can continue to expand. You know, Ralph Waldo Emerson once said that the only person you are destined to become is the person that you decide to be. And dreaming is the very first step to planning. President and CEO of Scorpio Corporation, Domenic Scorpio, knew his dream of starting a company is common, but rarely executed with success. He needed a plan, and he spent the beginning of his career through mentorship, studying from the ground up about the construction industry. His ability to learn and to balance tradition with innovation continues to make him an intentional and successful business leader. He's now living his dream. When we return, we'll be talking to Domenic Scorpio.
How do IT pros stay up to date? With the IT Pro TV webinar series, of course. Twice per month, IT Pro TV presents a webinar available at no charge.
And we get started with today's topic. That's right, exploring the dark web with Don Pizzette. Don, how are we doing today, sir?
My name is Vaughn Smith, and today we are going to be presenting ITIL 4 Foundation exam tips and preparations.
We get started with today's topic, the undead of IT, supporting legacy systems. Help me in welcoming to the stage, Mr. Adam Gordon. Adam, how are we doing today, sir?
Hold on one second. I got to get started here. Can you talk to
Yeah, I
them
can
while
talk to us.
Okay, great.
Absolutely.
You can catch IT Pro TV webinars live or on demand at your convenience. See them all. Visit www.itpro.tv/webinars.
Welcome back to Ignite. We're here today with Domenic Scorpio. Domenic is the CEO and president of Scorpio, a commercial construction company. Domenic, welcome to Ignite. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, Vicki. Thank you so much for having me with you today.
My pleasure. Thank you. And, you know, Ignite is a podcast that is really dedicated to telling stories about people who are leaders in their space and who do some really cool things along the way. So before we jump into some of those cool things that you've been able to accomplish, tell us a little bit about Scorpio.
Sure. So Scorpio is a community-centered construction management company. We're here in Gainesville, Florida, and our focus is primarily on any facility that might serve the community at large. So it might be for university clients, it could be for community college or state colleges, hospitals, education, K-12 projects, and also local, county, or state government-related projects.
I know that construction, especially in Florida and probably all over the country, is right now especially kind of booming, right? So you're in a really fast-paced industry. A lot of things are changing and changing more rapidly than ever before. How did you enter into this field? What got you started into the construction business?
Yeah, interestingly enough, things are booming, and everyone recognizes that nationwide. And so this is our second go around, actually. How I got into the industry is my dad was a craftsman, believe it or not, the name like Scorpio. So I come from the homeland of Italy. He was a craftsman. He was a stonemason, and he introduced me to construction. It was more on a residential side of things. But growing up, he always influenced me to not do the physical construction side of it. He thought that maybe I should explore the architecture side of it. And I did. And I'm a degreed architect, actually. And I never practiced because the economy was not so strong when I received my degree in architecture. So, of course, as all intelligent people might do when the economy stinks and you don't have a job after graduation, you continue your education. And so I decided to do that in the commercial construction management realm to balance my architecture degree, still believing I wanted to get into that architecture space. But when I went into that program, I absolutely fell in love with the industry on the building side of it. So I kind of went back to dad's roots, even though he told me to focus on architecture. And I'm glad I did get into commercial construction. I interned through school, and through that experience, I just absolutely received a passion for what we do in the industry. So my career pretty much took off from that moment.
You know, if my parents are watching, they're going to really laugh what you just said because they always said that they're right, right? So you just share.
Parents are always right.
That's right. Yeah. So that transition for you from architecture into construction, I'm sure, was an interesting one, but definitely well related. And you know, architecture is one of those things that takes a special eye for design and a deliberate ability to be able to kind of put the pieces together. I'm sure that's served you well as you've made that transition into building construction.
It did. That is a good parallel you drew there. There's no question that attention to detail is big when it comes to design and architecture. And really where it served me most well is because my background, my education is in architecture. That's a team that we work with on a daily basis, right? So I learned to speak the language, so to speak. Many contractors that don't have that training, sometimes it takes them a while to even get on the same page, relate to what an architect might be trying to describe in the feeling of the space they're trying to create. So I think it gives our team and our company a little bit of leverage over some other companies in being able to do that. And quite frankly, when it comes to the process of architecture and learning those skills and applying it then to a business mindset, the transition was almost seamless, and actually it was an advantage for me as I saw it as my career started to grow.
Mm-hmm. So did you make that jump immediately in starting your own company, or was there other steps that took place before that?
No, that's quite a story, and it's a fun one to tell. So as I interned going to graduate school, the gentleman that I interned for, he ultimately offered me a job. But as I said, the economy was slow when I went into graduate school. When I came out, it was booming. And so coming out of graduate school, I had 6 job offers. I was interning for an incredible builder here locally, and he made me a job offer as well. But he made me a job offer at 50% less than the other job offers that I had. As I said, I had 6 job offers for some pretty reputable companies.
Wow.
And so, yeah, a lot of people ask me quite frequently what made me decide that taking a 50% pay cut right out of college, especially I had to put myself through college and had student loans. Why would I do such a thing? And I can tell you that the game changer for me was he asked me what my goal was, what my vision was for myself, and I told him that I wanted to own my own company. And so we had a frank conversation, and he said, you go to work for some of these larger nationally recognized companies, and you really become a number, and the investment they'll make in you, it'll be a good one, and you'll have a good career. But if you truly want to learn the business and you truly have aspirations of having your own company one day, I'll take you in and mentor you to do that. And so for me, it was more of a long range process. I wasn't looking for immediate gratification. I knew that ultimately my goal was to have my own company, and knowing that he was willing to invest in me and teach me the business, it was an easy decision. 50%. The way I saw it is I was still learning. I was moving into my learning phase of the industry, so made it a very easy decision.
Yeah, and kind of an apprenticeship as you moved through that career, but that. That oftentimes, especially right out of college, we have student loans that we're trying to pay back and other debt, probably not making a ton of money through a lot of our education. So it's really hard to turn away from the dollars, right, and jump into that situation. And what I find really brilliant is he obviously was a very smart man by showing you how he was going to invest in you for long term. So I bet that was pretty impressive.
Yes, and I can expand on that too, because that's exactly what happened. I told him that my 5-year goal was to learn as much as I could about the industry and then start my own company. And he could have just as easily said, well, I'm not going to invest in you if you're ultimately potentially plan on being my competition, right? That would have been a natural mindset. But he said, look, I'll invest in you and make you everything you need to be successful in this business. and we'll see where it goes from there. Well, he had a very long memory because that 5 year mark, I'm one to generally stick to my goals. And so that 5 year mark was coming up, and I was considering making that move to starting my own company because, in fact, I did receive some very, very excellent mentoring. And it was right around that time frame where he came to me and said, "Look, I've got ownership in this sister company. I am thinking about either dissolving it or investing in it further, and I'll invest in it further if you would agree to partner with me and become its chief operating officer." And I thought it was brilliant on his part. I'm going to go with the fact that he just had a very long memory, and the timing was just there for me. But I saw it as a very, very good opportunity, and to give that an attempt while 5 years into my career, I felt like I knew a lot, but the reality of it was I didn't have the resources to start my own business. And so for him to offer that opportunity to me, and I said to myself in conversations with him that if you're giving me an opportunity to grow and expand my career through this avenue versus trying it on my own, let's make this work. And so that was a pretty magical moment in my career anyhow.
You know what I call that, Dominic?
Let's hear
I call that the crucible. I call that the crucible. And I'll tell you why. Because we often are put in situations, if we're really good at our jobs, right? We're really good, skillful, we're technically sound, and we do an amazing job in the role that we're in. Typically what happens is we're put into the next role where we really don't know exactly what to do because it's putting us out of our comfort zone. And what a great way to learn. So I bet that was a great learning experience for you to take the next step.
It was, and actually, I'm glad you mentioned taking the next step because I've reflected on that time over my career many times because I felt like my upbringing led me to a career in architecture and construction, gave me the interest, right? And then I received an education that landed me that position with my mentor, and his mentorship then gave me the skill set to have him offer me a partnership opportunity to go lead a company. Well, there's an interesting story about the day that he introduced me to that company. It was a sister company. I wasn't aware of the people that were in that organization. There was about 50 employees in the company. And so my mentor stands in front of the room and he said, "We're going to gather everyone up." And he explains that that he is acquiring more of the company from some other partners, and he is going to introduce me as the new partner and the chief operating officer of the organization. And he gave a pretty passionate conversation to the team about what was going to happen and how it was going to be led into the next generation of success for the company. And he turns the microphone over to me and he says, "Is there anything you want to add? Is there anything you want to say to your team?" And I said, No, I think I'm pretty good, yeah, well, I chuckle about it too now as well. But the reality of it was all of the education and training and learning that I'd had up to that point was really in the business and in the process of building projects. Mm-hmm. I certainly wasn't prepared to be a leader of an organization. By the way, I was 27 years old, so if that puts things into perspective. Mm-hmm. But the reality of it was I didn't know what to say to this team. I've never led an organization before. And so from that point forward, I can assure you that that's when my career in leadership and my desire to learn about how to be an effective leader, that's where it took off. And I can assure you of this as well. If anyone ever asks me if I have anything to say, I'm not going to be ever be silent again on that one.
Yep. And I love that. You mentioned mentorship as a big part of your success and being able to learn from somebody who's really great at what they do, and then them having the courage to put you into a space where it could have gone either way, right? You could have learned of what to say in front of that team, or it could have gone that you go back to not leading a team and going more functionally into your skill and expertise. So those are really great things to take with you. And from that, you started your own company. I know that was a couple of years later, right? But I'm sure you've taken those learnings and now apply it to what you do at Scorpio.
Yeah, and I could share a little bit more of that story because it was a very fun story. Over the course of the next decade, we grew pretty substantially into 7 geographic markets. And during that time, unfortunately, my mentor did pass, but then the economy came to a screeching halt, right? And so I mentioned it was a sister company. So those companies made the strategic move to merge. And when they did is when we started right sizing the company because of how poor the economy was at that time. Well, the reality of it was very bad, and then we started to evaluate. Well, where does it go from here? And that was really what was the catalyst for me deciding that my time is now, my moment is now. There's not a lot going on, and we had quite a few partners in the organization at that time, and I saw it as an opportunity to ultimately achieve my personal ambition to step away and to start a company of my own, especially seeing that with the economy the way it was, there was going to be no other way but up from that point forward. It was as bad as, at least I believed it was as bad as it was going to get. So if I was going to meet that personal ambition, the timing was then. And now with this company at Scorpio, honestly, I haven't tried to reinvent myself. Our team hasn't tried to reinvent themselves. We just stay to blocking and tackling. Our values haven't changed. Our processes and systems haven't changed. What we have done is change the mindset, though. We've changed some behaviors within the organization. And so, in my career, in my life, I refer to it as version 2.0. In version 2.0, we're doing things slightly different from a behavioral and a mindset perspective. And because of that, our successes are growing at a much faster rate than they did with version 1.0. So it's been a lot of fun, and I'm really proud of our team for everything we've done in a very, very short amount of time.
Yeah, that's
By the way, the economy picking up helps as well.
That never hurts, right?
No.
Never hurts. And just, Domenic, just for people that are listening and maybe not watching, we're here with Domenic Scorpio. He's the president and CEO of Scorpio, a construction company in Florida. And, you're talking about version 2.0, right? So version 2.0, you said, is a little bit different than version 1.0. And you've learned some lessons, and you've changed a couple of the ways that you operate with your team. What are some of the biggest things that you've taken from version 1.0 and you've integrated that into version 2.0 to contribute to your success?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. So I already mentioned that I had to figure out really quick how I was going to lead a team. And so we really started to implement strategic initiatives. We met as an organization annually, and we did focus on processes and systems, but even those were not strategic, right? So now in this new organization, our vision is very clear. We are very intentional about our strategy. Everything from processes, systems, meetings, everything we do is constantly tying back into our vision that is then led by a strategic plan that supports that vision, that then is broken down further into goals that support our strategic plan, and it just keeps on going deeper and deeper. From our goals, it goes to tactical measures, and then we can start talking about processes and systems in order to carry out those tactical measures. So, I would have to say to really wrap up, the biggest difference from the first time around to now is the word is intentional. Everything we do when we come to work every day, every decision we make, every behavior that we bring to the table is absolutely intentional.
And that intent, I think one of the things that you mentioned to me before is that the intent is around kind of thinking big. And you just talked a little bit about those breaking down those big ideas into smaller things. So tell me a little bit about your thoughts around maybe that goal setting, that planning, that strategic focus around thinking big.
Sure. So when people, and there was an issue even in the first company. I'm a big thinker. My vision is big, and you hear a lot of people say, "Well, bigger isn't always better," and it's not at all. But you have to think big because it really lifts any limits from what your mindset is on what you can ultimately achieve. And really, our mindset sets the tone for everything, right? Our mindset establishes 100% of our actions. And so if you don't think big, then you're in essence, you're limiting what you believe you're capable of doing, and you're putting yourself in a box. Mm-hmm. And so from my perspective, you can't think big enough. And I think my team has embraced that concept that you can't think big enough, and you can't fear big, because if it's intentional, you can find the steps, the strategies, the goals to break it down to where it's really a manageable process to where you will achieve the things that you've set yourself out to achieve and the goals that you've set yourself out to accomplish. And so, you have to lift the fear off of the idea of thinking big and recognizing that it's a vision, right? So it could be a 5-year vision, it could be a 10-year vision, or it could be. I read an article once that Ford Motor Company has a 100-year vision, and people think, how can they know where they want to be in 100 years?
Right.
Well, the reality of it is they're thinking exceptionally big, so their vision has to be stretched out over 100 years in order to achieve it. But I would almost commit and attest to the fact that you can go to Ford Motor Company today and ask them what their 1-year plan and 5-year plan is to achieve that 100-year vision, and they've got it nailed down. So I think the bigger your thoughts and the bigger your vision, you have to allow yourself the time to reach that vision and break it down from there. And it really, you continue to break down the parts and pieces till you're really goal setting to right now, to today. And when you do that, all of a sudden it scales it to a place where you can get so small in the thought of what is my next step that it becomes manageable, right? So now I'm going to go full circle and bring it back to what mom and dad tells you, and that's baby steps, right? Take baby steps, and then eventually you're going to walk, and eventually you're going to jog, and eventually you're going to run very fast. So it's the same concept, just said differently.
Yeah. Sometimes it's really, it can be scary for people to think too big, right? Because it is a little bit overwhelming, or it can be a vulnerable position to say, this is really the big goal that I want to achieve. And so often also we get kind of bogged down in details that sometimes we forget to think big. But I know that you've been able to infuse this not just in your professional life, but also in your personal life. Can you give us some situations where thinking big has really made an impact on maybe those around you or on your teams?
Sure. And when you mentioned even in my personal life, I do have, if I can take a minute to tell a pretty cute personal story. Thinking big happens around the house as well, whether we're doing birthday parties or whether we're doing social events or even family outings. The Scorpio household thinks very, very big. And so I'll tell a really fast story. My 10-year-old was coming up on her 10th birthday. She hadn't quite turned 10 yet. We had about 6 months before her birthday party, and we said, you have to start planning your party, because if we're going to think big, we have to act big. And so let's talk about it. And double digits is big, so you have to realize that as well, right? She's going to be 10. And so our family was really circling around the TV show Survivor, and she says, I want to have a Survivor party. And I said, that sounds fantastic. Let's start talking about what that means. And she started breaking down all of the games and obstacles that she wanted to produce for her birthday party. And the reality of it was going to be a huge undertaking. I said, okay, well, if that's your goal, if that's your vision for your birthday party, let's start breaking it down to today. And no joke, it took us 6 months, and we were committed to spending a certain number of hours every day of the week to the task. And for anyone that attended that birthday party, I think Jeff Probst, the host of Survivor, would have been absolutely proud of what we delivered that day. It was a phenomenal showcase of all the great obstacles of Survivor in my backyard, and we had a ball. Yeah. So that's on a personal level, right? And I appreciate you allowing me a few minutes to tell that story. But internally with our team, there's no question. The word you used was vulnerable. And I share with my team all the time, you can't be afraid to talk about your goals. You can't be afraid to talk about how successful you really want to be. And not everyone wants to see big success, right? We've all heard the stories about the miserable millionaire and the exceptionally happy janitor, right? So it's not about money. It's not about what personal gains in that regard. It's an inside job. It's a mindset. It's what you really want out of your life to make yourself happy. And so I always encourage my team, you can't ever be afraid to share what your ultimate dreams are, what your ultimate goals are, because collectively as a team, if we're transparent and we understand where we're all coming from, we could put that puzzle together to say, look, we can all collectively accomplish every one of our goals and aspirations, no matter how small or how big they are. But it's got to start with you being vulnerable and be willing to share that story of what you want out of your life, how you define your life. And we promote that in all of our conversations across the teams.
Well, just really quick, going back to your daughter, it sounds like you're already grooming the next builder in your family with the construction of the obstacle courses, right? But more importantly, you're also teaching that same theme, not just with your family, but also in your team at work, that it's okay to think big, but you also have to act big to be able to accomplish those goals. And I'm sure that has built a culture in your organization that defines who you guys are and perhaps who you want to be in the future. Would culture tie into that a little bit?
Culture, that for me is what defines culture. Uh, for most, perhaps, when they think of culture, they'll go straight to well, we have Sunday barbecues and we get together for happy hour on Friday. Well, that could be a part of culture. There's no question about that. But for me, culture is 100% about what you value in life. What is your purpose in life? Um, what are the behaviors how do we talk, walk, act every day to achieve that purpose and fulfill those values on a daily basis? For us, that's what culture is. That's the essence of culture. From there, it breaks down even more in depth with, okay, well, what are the processes and the systems that are going to support our culture? The processes and the systems support a culture, but the culture, it's really, it's a mindset, it's a behavior, it's a way you act, it's a way you present yourself, and it's a way that you deliver every single day.
Yeah.
That for me is the definition of culture.
Yeah, and just kind of put a bow on this whole idea of thinking big and how it impacts the culture. Can you think of a situation where, perhaps on your team at work or in your personal life, where that thinking big has, by somebody else that's around you on your team, you've seen how that has an impact on the culture? Can you think of a situation that just kind of stands out in your mind that, wow, that was a big chunky thought and they delivered on it through some really impressive action, and wow, it had a huge impact on what we do and who we are?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because it didn't take long to find that story. So we were delivering a project here in town, and it was last year. And if you're in Florida, you know that we were impacted by several hurricanes, and especially our region, we had the most rainfall in 100 years, actually by twice the amount. So in a construction person's world, that is significantly impactful. And so we had a deadline that couldn't be changed. It had to be met. And every day our team would get together and say, we have got to think out of the box here. We've got to think bigger than allowing the weather to hold us up. What is it that we're going to do? And our on-site superintendent, I don't know if he went home and dreamt on it, but he came back one day and he said, I know what we need to do. We are going to build a canopy over the entire job site. And I said, how are we going to do this? And he said, I've been thinking about it all night. I've got it figured out. And I'm not going to give the secret away of what we did because our competition might be listening. But ultimately, we circled the resources that we needed to circle. And it was just art in motion. Within a 72-hour period, we had acquired all of the materials we needed, and we had a plan to tarp the entire job site to not let weather be an impact for us. And it was really awesome to watch an entire team, not only my immediate team, but everyone on the construction site that was watching this take place and unfold. And they said, of course, the first thing is, you guys are crazy. But we said, no, we're not crazy. We have an objective, and we're going to meet that objective. And this is a fantastic way to do that. Now, we had to make an investment. There was no question that we had to make an investment beyond what we plan to do. But sometimes when you want to think big and you want to achieve big success, you have to take some pretty big measures. And that was one of those instances that comes to mind when you ask that question.
I love what you just said about art in motion. Yeah, that was brilliant, right? So watching, those ideas come to life truly is a bit of an art. So just in your journey, just to kind of wrap us up and bring us to a close, is there any one or two things that you've experienced throughout your career or in some of the interactions that you've had with your team or in your personal life that you want people to know about you as a leader? Like, what is the thing that you want to be known for as a leader as you move through the rest of your career?
There is, certainly. And it's right there in big and bold. It's the first sentence in our mission. My goal is to build people. I mean, ultimately, that's where my passion is drawn from. I've been through different phases in my career that led me to where I am today. And for me, this is my new chapter. This is my new opportunity to give back to many, many more people. And so the first line of my mission is to build people. And I believe if you do that, if you invest in them every day, and you instill the values and you instill the culture and you instill all of the behaviors that it takes to achieve what they believe is their purposeful and fulfilling life, then I feel like I've accomplished the next chapter in my life. So building people is absolutely at the top of that agenda.
Well, that speaks volumes to me because, I feel the same way. So in this digital world, that becomes much more prominent to be able to make that human connection. So
Yes.
Domenic, thank you so much for being with us on Ignite. I appreciate you sharing some of your personal stories as well as your professional stories. And in just a few minutes, we're going to be right back with a couple of final thoughts.
Well, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me with you today.
Thanks.
Hey, IT pros, let IT Pro TV add food, drinks, and fun to your next meetup. Sysadmins, security groups, network admins, and more, tell us about your meetup and we may send you a meetup kit to make your meeting extra special. Your kit contains a gift card for refreshments, t-shirts, and stickers to give away, plus access codes for all of your group members to try IT Pro TV for free. Request a meetup sponsorship kit for your group today. Visit www.itpro.tv/events.
Welcome back to Ignite. Domenic showed us that you can never dream big enough. He viewed his entrepreneurial dreams as the end goal and did not let the restraints of reality make him settle for less. Domenic is a great example of how determination generates results. To listen to your next inspiration, follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn to find the latest episodes. From IT Pro TV and myself, thank you and see you next time.